Hi, folks. Welcome to this month's featured webinar on how fleets are implementing driver training by combining the power of telematics and training. I'm Amit Jain from Roadz, the marketplace platform which powers the Predictive marketplace. Over the next 30 minutes, you will learn how best-in-class fleets have evolved in terms of implementing their driver training programs. Most training programs today don't take into account the individual driver behavior. Why? Because the driver behavior data usually sits in one system and the training in another, and these both systems don't talk to each other. So the impact on safety is minimal. What Predictive Coach does is that it takes the individual driver behavior data and then offers a custom training program to address the specific behavior that needs to be corrected. To kick it off, Harry Stork from Predictive will share a few thoughts, followed by a presentation from Mauricio from Predictive Coach. We will end the session by viewing the solution on the Predictive marketplace. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those towards the end of the session. So, Harry?
Yes, thanks, Amit, and thanks everyone for joining. My name is Harry Stork. I lead the loss prevention organization at Predictive. Today we have, I think, what will be a very interesting discussion from Mauricio, really offering a closed loop solution. Many of our clients we hear in the marketplace are capturing a lot of data, but they struggle with automating processes to document their coaching and training. So look forward to having Mauricio share the Predictive Coach product, and also look for more products coming soon from RMJ, as they are a reseller for multiple solutions, and they'll be adding more to the Predictive marketplace in the future. So with that, Mauricio, thanks for joining, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity, and I hope this is very helpful in understanding what else is new in the market, and we're very excited to share what we have going on here. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Mauricio, president of RMJ Technologies and Predictive Coach. We're very happy to be partnered with Roadz here and Predictive on the marketplace. And as you can see on the slide here, the first slide, I like to ask for you guys to pay particular attention to it, because it really highlights the differences in emotional driving. Emotional driving is a thing, and it's really causing more and more accidents and risky driver behavior out there. There's a lot of things happening in the cab today, a lot of different electronics that can pull the attention from a driver, leading to distracted driving. But we also have to remember that if a driver is in a hurry or is listening to loud music, those different factors play an important role as to how they will drive for that specific day. And we'll be drilling into that a little bit more throughout my presentation. But our agenda is pretty brief. We're going to talk about why we created Predictive Coach, what Predictive Coach actually is, how it works, does it actually work, and then we'll actually be able to do some Q&A. We're welcoming to be able to show you some training content if we have time. So Predictive Coach, why it was created. Basically, we took a deep dive into our customers and the particular situations that they were in, the challenges that they were facing. As a partner of me having been a reseller for the past 15 years, we looked at our customers' daily challenges, and of course we try to address those. And looking at that, we've uncovered a few challenges, and we realized that there was a gap, there was a need in the market. First of all, when looking at the fleet reality, we're looking at the fact that accidents are costing billions of dollars a year. 90% of these accidents are actually caused by poor driver behavior. And then there's a thing called data overload, which is actually leading to willful negligence. Naturally, the insurance costs will rise due to now the skyrocketing rise of nuclear verdicts. And we understood in dealing with our customers that in order to have a successful telematics program, you needed to be able to manage the data that was coming in and hold drivers accountable for the behavior that they were having. In many instances, we saw where a customer who actually paid attention and did something about the data that was coming in, their risk driver behavior fell significantly, with opposed to those that just put it in hoping that the drivers would change the behavior on their own. There was no change. If anything, the behavior stayed the same. It got worse. So other challenges that we've encountered through speaking to our customers was there was just a need to close the gap between data and discipline outcomes, right? We already knew that managers were already having a tremendous amount of tasks at hand on a daily basis. And on top of that, they have all this information, all this data coming in. Well, the data is good and it gives great optics to the fleet manager as far as where their assets are and how other drivers are doing. But then there's that now what question. I have all this data coming in. I have all these other duties and responsibilities, but what do I do about this information, this risk information that I'm getting? Well, the answer to that was most of our customers were really not able to manage it. And as a result, they were actually exposed to what we then uncovered. Willful negligence became a real issue. Willful negligence is now leading to nuclear verdicts. And the task on managers, the responsibility on managers is still the same. Unfortunately, these nuclear verdicts and willful negligence, it doesn't get uncovered until a subpoena is requested by the court or an incident happens. So we ended up researching, trying to figure out if there was a solution out there that already existed that could help alleviate this challenge for our fleet managers. And to our surprise, there was nothing. So then that's really when we started to look at our responsibility as a partner of our customers to really close that gap. So here's a graphic here that shows telematics as a whole. 99% of telematics companies out there are doing this, where they provide a significant amount of data, great efficiency, improved visibility, improved safety, but not to the point where we've taken it, right? So there is a significant amount of benefits on the telematics front, but there was still a gap that wasn't being filled. And that's really where we come in. We needed to be able to fill that gap, which was alleviate or take away the willful negligence exposure for our customers, but at the same time, not add a whole bunch of workload to the managers, because we know they're already overwhelmed. So we needed to do that. And we also wanted to make sure that the cost was not prohibitive and that it was affordable, so that we can still take the workload off the managers, but still have a very efficient and effective driver training program. In developing these, in working in development and closing the gap, we've identified and we started really looking at telematics as a double-edged sword. Telematics and video data are awesome. And now telematics combined with video data are a great team. However, when you look at the data on one side of the spectrum, or of the sword, right, you get great operational efficiency, driver safety data, reduced maintenance and vehicle repair. But on the other side, there's a tremendous amount of volumes of data coming in, and it's not being managed. When it's not being managed, it's leading to managers to almost intentionally, unintentionally ignore the data because they have all this stuff that's happening in their day-to-day. So as I mentioned before, this challenge and exposure of willful negligence can simply be uncovered with a subpoena from the courts. Before, when telematics weren't really prevalent, you didn't hear much of subpoenas being pulled. Today, we're finding that attorneys that are really good at what they're doing, targeting specifically transportation companies in the heavy trucking industry, there are billboards littered everywhere where they target these companies because they know that by simply pulling a subpoena and being able to get all the GPS tracking records, they're going to find that gap that's missing, that most companies are not able to address. And again, that's that void of being able to address the now what and being able to proactively assign driver training based on driver behavior. So that leads us to what our Predictive Coach solution is. Predictive Coach is actually the first of its kind software that uses telematics data, accelerometer data, to gather driver behaviors and automatically assign behavior-based driver training. That's the key here. It's based on that behavior for that driver for that day. So we're not sending out any kind of generic training. It's based on the fleet's risk tolerance, on the amount of exceptions they are allowing their drivers to have before they get assigned a remedial training course. And these courses are very digestible, between 3 to 7 minutes. They're designed so that the drivers are not in a classroom all the time, but they actually are getting little tidbits of driver training, letting them know, one, there's an accountability factor now, and two, we're actually arming the organization with paperwork that they can then use to fight that willful negligence claim from the plaintiff's bar. So Predictive Coach uses the information from telematics devices. Video data can be integrated. And our solution, though very effective in the fact that it disseminates these short trainings to the drivers based on that behavior, it also really helped us find other really great benefits. We are the only behavior-based automated driver training that's patented in the market today. Our solution thoroughly is addressing the safety data challenges that I mentioned. It is completely automated and documented. That's the biggest piece there too, is that it's documented. Again, we talked about, let's look at having the documentation in place so that when a collision does occur, we have actual trail of documentation showing that we are proactively training our drivers. An example of this, and this is a scenario that comes up quite often, is a company gets into a collision. They go into court, there's a subpoena, they pull up the records and they say, okay, well, it looks like your driver was driving like a mad person for the last 6 weeks. What did you do to help remediate or fix that? Chances are the manager didn't have time to bring him in. So the answer might be, I gave him a training course, a generic training course 6 months ago, or when I first hired him. And that hurts the organization tremendously. That puts them in a really bad situation. Now, let's talk about a situation where Predictive Coach is in place and we have documentation because of the automation training that's being assigned. Same situation, collision happens, the subpoena is done. Show me the records for this driver. Oh, it shows like they were driving like madmen through the past 6 weeks. What did you do about it? As a matter of fact, jury and judge, we actually assigned all of these different training courses to them proactively based on that behavior for that time. And so we are proactively training our drivers. So again, having that documentation becomes essential. Our solution also ensures that drivers are treated equitably and there's no perception of a perceived bias or favoritism. This, of course, plays an important role because managers often stay away from coaching drivers because they've established a bond or they don't want to ruffle feathers, right? Especially if you're a new fleet manager or if you have friends within the fleet. You want the favoritism can be perceived quickly. So what this does is it allows us to uniformly across the board set these parameters for all drivers, and they're all treated the same. So when I mention fleet manager not wanting to pull somebody in, is if the same driver keeps committing the same bad infractions over and over and he keeps pulling them in, the driver automatically starts saying that the manager's out to get him, or he doesn't like him, or whatever. So a lot of the times managers tend to shy away from disciplining folks when there are certain infractions in place that are serious infractions and can lead to serious injuries and death, but they just, not to ruffle any feathers, tend to look the other way. So our solution actually protects the relationship and it removes that awkwardness between manager and employee. And of course, a big part of this too is that we're accounting for the fact that no two drivers are the same, nor will they drive the same on every single day. Again, we talked about the emotional driving piece, where if they're listening to loud music, if they're late, if there's somebody in the car, if they're with their phone, there's a lot of different factors that play an important role here. And so our training is designed to be able to grab onto those behaviors based on the accelerometer data that we're getting and actually assigning that digestible training. So in a nutshell, here's how it works. We actually take those behaviors such as speeding, hard braking, hard acceleration, hard cornering, seatbelt, and of course, distracted driving is a combination. But we actually take those parameters. The fleet manager or the organization gets to set their risk tolerance. They get to designate how many times they're going to allow speeding, how many times they'll allow hard braking. Obviously, we have organizations that have a zero tolerance on seatbelts, so they have one infraction will trigger a training. But once that risk tolerance is set, our system will then monitor, right? It'll communicate with the devices. It'll be able to tell how many times those infractions were broken or those those barriers were broken. And then it'll actually go in here and process the data, in which at the end of the day, the data will be processed. The next day, the driver will actually receive a notification. It's a very clean notification. It says, hey, you've been assigned a speeding course 1 or speeding course 2. The courses are short, but remember that if they actually, the more they cause these infractions, if they're constantly speeding, the courses will tend to get longer. And I mention that because as the courses get longer, they get more painful to complete. So the more painful they get to complete, we actually are seeing a great result where drivers are actually saying, well, I don't like taking these courses, so I tend to just kind of drive a little bit slower, which is perfect because that's exactly what we want to do. We want to have them be safer, whether it's because they don't want to take courses or simply because they don't want to get in trouble. It's still the accountability factor. And then, of course, on the other side, managers will get a notification as well saying, hey, Joe got assigned a speeding course. He has 7 days to complete it. Of course, we give notifications to the managers and the drivers when they're 3 days before expiration, or actually not expiration, sorry, when it's past due. And then we also give them a notification a couple days after it's past due, so that we make sure that those courses are being handled and done. That piece is super important, to make sure that they do the courses when they're assigned and they don't let them pile up, because that also can look bad if drivers are not, if the fleet manager and the risk management is not staying on top of these courses. So that's key in a successful program. So the question comes up is, does this actually work? Well, we sought out to a very reputable organization, Virginia Tech Transportation Institute, and they did a case study on our solution. In this case study, they took 92 drivers within one department over a period of 13 weeks. And what we were hoping for was for a 25% reduction, because we knew that if we hold drivers accountable, if they felt like they were being held accountable, if we're providing digestible training courses, that we were going to probably get a 25% across the board. Through the use of Predictive Coach, the case study found the hard braking was reduced by 52%, the hard cornering was reduced by 51%, and then the speeding was reduced by almost 74%. So those, coming back across the board were very impressive, and we were very happy to get these numbers. This means two things. One, we're significantly impacting the safety of a fleet, but two, we're also saving lives, right? So those are really awesome numbers to get. We weren't surprised at all, based on our experience with dealing with telematics and safety programs, that when the Predictive Coach program was taken out, the actual behavior went right back to where it was before. So we had a situation where the behaviors went down as a result of a proactive training, and then they went right back up when the training stopped coming. In a most recent case study, which I don't have here yet because it's just about to be published, we actually decided to test our solution on a fleet that was already being awarded and recognized for many different safety. They're just known as a really good safety company, right? They're a fleet that's known for safety. They've received many awards. They're using cameras. Key component there. They're already using cameras. So to them, their case was, we already get all these awards, we have cameras, then we probably won't be able to experience what you've experienced with this other case study. To our surprise, even through the use of cameras and through the use of a good safety program, our solution was able to still reduce risky behavior by 63%. So I'm very excited about that just being released, because we're going to be able to share that with you guys here in the next couple of weeks, showing that even if you are already hypersensitive to safety, we still can make a significant impact. So as I mentioned before, managers get overwhelmed with a whole bunch of different tasks throughout the day. And on top of that, they have to get all these different reports, all this different data that they have to look at. And quite frankly, it's almost nearly impossible to do for one fleet manager or for a couple fleet managers to really handle this. So our solution really simplifies that. We're going to take all of this information, all of this that you see here, because everybody has a pretty scorecard. Everybody does well on telematics across the board, but we've simplified it and we've made it effective. So our simplifying of the risk and safety is down to this dashboard. This is what you would be able to see as a safety manager. The only thing you really have to be looking at is this number here. You want to have a very low tolerance on past due courses, because of course those courses can play a role against the company, and also it's not being effective. We're not really letting drivers learn and understand that we're holding them accountable. So this is really big on the accountability piece, but also remember there's a flexibility piece where not all fleets are the same. So we have to be able to be flexible in putting in and allowing the fleet to put in their own risk tolerance. How many infractions are they going to allow? And this is the place in our interface where drivers can come in and fleet managers can come in and put on there how many infractions they'll allow per behavior. So in a nutshell, fleet expectations, I think across the board, fleets expect for partners like ourselves to help employees return home safely every day. That's a huge one. They want us to help reduce claims, reduce management hours associated with driver behavior, naturally reducing the liability and the willful negligence exposure, as well as the nuclear verdict exposure. That's been a very high topic of conversation in the last few months. And they want us to help reduce insurance expenses, especially if they're self-insured. Obviously, Telematics does a good job of reducing vehicle maintenance and operating expenses, but they also want us to help with an increased marketable orientation towards safety. Everybody, especially with distracted driving coming into play, is concerned and want to have that PR where they're talking about how focused they are on safety. Our mission objectives here at Predictive Coach are pretty simple. We want to help do most of the heavy lifting for our customers to ensure the drivers are held accountable for safety. We want to arm our customers with proactive driver training documentation in order to avoid willful negligence convictions, which lead to nuclear verdicts. And of course, we're planting the seed here, and because we're new and everybody knows it's a concept that's new. Obviously, we've been here for a couple of years now, but it's a concept that's fairly new, and we're creating these ripples that we know will eventually become tidal waves in saving thousands of lives, especially when it comes to distracted driving. Drivers everywhere, not even just fleet drivers, but everywhere, have a habit of picking up the phone, or they have a habit of doing multitasking while they're driving. And so for us to be able to pick up on that and to coach against it when it happens is a big deal to us. Naturally, as a result of us being able to do this, we can assume that more folks will make it home to the dinner table to their families every day. And that's something that we take to heart. Obviously, as a partner of many fleets out there, we know that there are cases where people don't make it home. And so I heard somebody talk about being tired of being in the business of putting folks in body bags, and that was coming from a fleet manager of a fleet. And so that stuck to me, because I never thought of it that way, but it's true. I mean, the drivers have those keys, and we think that they're going to make it home at the end of the day, but nothing's guaranteed, especially if the bad habits continue. So in a nutshell, Predictive Coach will help reduce nuclear verdict exposure. Fleets can greatly benefit from proactive driver training. The implementation easy and the results are great. Other than that, I will break it over to Q&A if you guys have any questions.
So Mauricio, let's hold that thought. Let's first show everybody how to get to your solution card on the marketplace.
Okay.
Can everybody see my screen? Mauricio, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen now. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So folks, in the chat box, I put the URL for the Protective Insurance Marketplace. You can go in there and click on it if you'd like to, but let me give you a quick tour. Once you land on the homepage of the Protective Insurance Marketplace, you'll see on the left side, there are all these categories of solutions that are relevant to safety and risk management. So you can, at your leisure, go and browse through all those solutions. At the bottom are also some of the webinars that we have already hosted on behalf of Predictive Insurance over the past few months. So you can even look at those categories and study. But for the sake of today's training, let's go and find the Predictive Coach Solution card. Luckily, the Predictive Coach card is right up top here. So this, if let's say it was further down in the list, you would be scrolling through these different categories of solutions. And this one is listed under driver behavior. So when you click on driver behavior, you'll see that this is one of the options. When you click on this option, the solution card opens up and it gives you a brief description about the solution, a little bit longer description, multimedia carousel, where you'll have the pleasure of seeing a video from Mauricio again, where he explains what they do, a little bit about the features and benefits. Who is it for? So their solution applies across all fleet classes and fleet sizes, but for the sake of this discussion, it for sure applies to class 7 and 8 trucks. And then a little bit about the company is at the bottom. If you are interested in finding out more about the solution, you can click on this request info. It's a simple form that you fill out and hit send. At that point, Predictive Coach will be notified that they need to connect with you or contact you to give you further details. So that's in a nutshell how you get to Predictive Coach, and very simple navigation back and forth from the home page onto the solution card. At this point, let me go to the Q&A. And the first question is, what kind of training do you provide to the manager, if any, to speak to the employee and the drivers?
That's actually a great question. We typically don't, so our training courses are geared specifically for drivers. It's not geared towards fleet managers. Really what we do on the offset when we first get everything started is we do a train the trainer, talk to the fleet manager as to how they're going to get their best results. We also help them clear out accelerometer noise. So we create exceptions to help them reduce the noise based on their fleet. But to that point, we do train a trainer up front, but we don't have training that goes out to fleet managers to stay on top of it. We really emphasize the fact that they need to have keep a look on the past 2 courses.
Thank you. Second question is phone used while driving by your solution?
Say it again.
I see. Is phone used while driving used by your solution? I guess.
Oh, as far as being able to track that.
Yeah.
No, not at this time. We are working in partnership with actually Lifesaver, who's on here, to try to partner up on that. So that's a big deal. We want to make sure to capture it. But right now we're able to capture accelerometer data and seatbelt.
Okay. Yeah, so Mauricio, that's a good point. So we do have 2 other vendors that are on the marketplace that work in the distracted driving cell phone tablet space. Mauricio mentioned Lifesaver. The other is Safe Drive Pod. Lifesaver has presented at one of the webinars before. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the marketplace, you can go in and re-listen to the webinar on the distracted driving. They were our first or one of the early ones that presented.
How long is the training data retained, Mauricio?
The training, so the course that gets assigned, which is the training videos, those courses will be there for, well, the driver will have it before it's past due for 7 days. And then afterwards, it'll have past due. It'll actually stay there until either it gets canceled, which we don't recommend, or it gets taken. So there's not a time frame where it falls off. It'll just fall off. It'll just stay on there as a past due course. The only thing there too is that if a course, for example, a driver gets assigned a driver speeding 1, and then a few days later they get assigned speeding 2, and they go through the whole module. When they go all the way back to the first cycle of speeding 1, it'll create a backlog if they've ignored all the 10 courses that they were assigned. So there is a backlog component, and there is a past due feature there, but it'll stay there for as long as they either take them or they get taken out by the fleet manager.
Great. And the last question was, do you offer this outside of the US?
Do we offer this outside?
Yeah, the solution.
I'm sorry, outside of what? I'm sorry?
US. United States.
Oh, after the US. Great question. We do not. So right now we hit the ground running. We're like kids in a candy store because we're going in different verticals. And what it is, we're getting some great responses in high demand. We were working on a securing a patent in the UK and in Brazil, but right now those things are pending. But right now, all US is fully covered.
One more question. How do you collect the telematics data? Does the company or the fleet have to provide you that data in terms of reports or access?
Yeah, so we will tie into, right now we're fully integrated with Geotab, and we, as RMJ Tech, we have that solution available for fleets that are interested in adopting the solution. We are in conversations with multiple partners or TSPs that are really interested in our solution, from video companies to telematics companies. So as of right now, we're fully integrated with Geotab. We are already in there in the marketplace and on the, not the marketplace, sorry, the UI. And so we can fully integrate with them. When it comes to other providers, it's going to have to be when those integrations are complete. We expect that by the end of the year, we'll have the ability to work with any manufacturer.
Just to add to that, so Roadz, that is one of the benefits of joining the Roadz platform. So we are integrating with multiple TSPs and getting the data onto our platform. So as long as we have the customer consent, we can go to those telematics service providers and get that data and share it with RMJ. So that's something we're also working on behind the scenes. Eventually, we'll be able to share with you when that would be alive and kicking. Okay, at this point, thank you everybody for joining the webinar. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you, guys.